Does plastic recycling actually work? Because plastic pollution is everywhere. From Mount Everest to the bottom of our oceans. Recent reports state that microplastics have been found in our water and food chain. In 2020, doctors found microplastics in umbilical cords and reported on what unchecked waste management can do to a country, crippling its infrastructure and polluting its waters. This is ridiculous. So yeah, I recycle my plastic bottles. I clean out my containers and sort them out. I do all the things that we're told to do to help recycle our plastic waste. Except it's like clearly not working. And after like one little Google search, I discovered that of all the plastic that has ever been created, only 9% of it has ever actually been recycled. And look at this graph. Plastic production isn't slowing down. So is plastic recycling a lie? Is it just one big scam that I don't quite understand yet? To help me figure this out, I dove back into the archives of my old reporting. I reached out to plastic experts to find out what all these confusing numbers and prompts actually mean, and I decided to track my waste to find out where it actually ends up. And this journey led me somewhere that I did not expect. Right here to a patch in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, an area twice the size of Texas, where below the surface floats the largest collection of plastic in the world. Thank you to Shopify for supporting this video. Okay, I'm already feeling very confused and overwhelmed about all the different types of plastic. Like, there's plastic in this, I don't know what, let alone what I'm meant to do with it or where it may or may not end up. And to help me figure that out, I reached out to Matt and Jonny from Brothers Make, who have an entire YouTube channel based around making sustainable items out of plastic. I'm hoping these guys can set me on the right course to answering this question.
Different recycling centres operate differently, and let's assume everyone's been really good and cleaned all the plastic and you've got this lovely bin full of perfectly clean, ready to recycle stuff. We spoke to somebody, and this is for the Dorset Waste Management, and they said, realistically, only things that can recycle are bottles, pots, tubs, and trays.
Lids?
They said some lids.
I'm still confused, but it's actually been designed that way. But I want to find out for myself where my plastic ends up. So I've decided to track it. Stage 1 complete. So besides deciding that I'm just going to track my plastic recycling, I haven't given too much thought to this idea. There's so many factors that could go wrong here. Somebody could just discover the AirTag, it could just stop working, it might just get broken or destroyed. Apple also has these things where if you're in the vicinity of one of these AirTags, it notifies you because they don't want creepy people using them to follow people. Oh, it makes a noise. So instead of thinking about that, Fred, I decided just buy them and see what happens. I'm gonna put one in this plastic bottle, recycle with cap on. So I'm hoping that they just won't take it off. Okay, one item down. And before I decided where to hide the second tracker, I was starting to think of how much plastic I interact with on a daily basis. Plastic, 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 plastic. Has this got plastic in it? Ooh, great headphones, look at this. Drone, that's nice, got some plastic in it. And that's just stuff I use on a regular basis. There is a lot more plastic in this room and in our everyday lives. What do I do with this if I want to throw it out? You get the point, right? We've become reliant on plastic for a lot of things, but that wasn't always the case. In the middle of the 19th century, we faced a different environmental issue. Certain species were facing extinction. We relied on things like elephant tusks for piano keys, while we turned tortoise shells into combs. To fix this horrible problem, investors wanted new materials, which led to a ton of scientific discoveries. But all you really need to know is just before the Second World War, a failed experiment yielded polyethylene, the world's most widely used plastic. And petroleum and chemical companies realized that they could produce the raw materials needed to produce plastic by processing crude oil and natural gas. All of these items contain polyethylene. Polyethylene was strong, flexible, lightweight, and resistant to heat, and performed so well in the war that other products followed. Things like Tupperware or artificial hip in knee joints, nylon stockings, and cookware like Teflon. Plastic then replaced more expensive items like paper, glass, and metal for packaging. Like, have you ever had to worry about your shampoo bottle shattering in the shower? No. Thank you, polyethylene. All of a sudden, products were cheap and easy to produce, which meant that everything that could be made out of plastic was much more affordable. By the 1950s, our world was fully obsessed with plastic. One of the biggest adopters was supermarket chains, who wrapped goods in all sorts of plastic so they could stock produce for longer and avoid spoilage, which resulted in more pre-packaged processed foods in our diet. You still see this today in large supermarkets, vegetables and a ton of other stuff just wrapped in single-use plastic. But if I cross the road to this greengrocer's, barely any plastic. Okay, I have a Tesco's plastic bag. I saw this video on Bloomberg where a guy put some trackers in these bags. I also got hungry. So I got some crisps. Again, in a plastic wrapper. Recyclable with bags at large supermarkets. Don't recycle at home. I got a feeling this one's gonna get lost. My rat's not gonna be seen. Mate, if I want to recycle this bag, is it those things over there? Is that just throw it in? Yeah? All right, thanks, mate. Okay, sure. Okay, second one planted. We'll check on that in a few days. The polyethylene bag was first patented by a Swedish company in 1965. People loved it because it was so light and durable. Yet the same chemical properties that make plastic so durable also make it difficult to break down. Some plastics take thousands or even tens of thousands of years to properly decompose. But it was too late. This revolutionary, cheap and convenient material had created a single-use culture. It's now the 22nd of April, 1980, and it's the 10th annual Earth Day. Environmental groups have caught on that everybody's beloved plastic is wreaking havoc on the environment, and mass protests hit the United States.
1 in every 10 Americans took part in rallies.
In response, the companies processing crude oil and fossil fuels to make plastic came up with an idea to push back and win the public's trust.
And that's what we call recycling.
It sounds impressive, but what does it all really mean?
Yup, good old recycling. They realized that they needed to change the public's perception, so they spent millions on advertising that their products were recyclable and therefore environmentally friendly.
You know me, I'm the fantastic 100% recyclable bottle. I'm Pete, repeat.
They also doubled down on emphasizing all the positives that plastic brings us.
Today, Brady Blackwell will come to appreciate a shatter-resistant shampoo bottle. Today, for the first time in years, Sheila Connor's grandpa will be able to walk with less pain, simply because of a material we call plastic.
They knew that if they improved the image of polyethylene materials, they could continue to sell plastic to the world. And it worked. Plastic production nearly doubled from 1990 to 2010. All they needed was just one symbol. Since the 1970s, this has been the symbol for recycling, but manufacturers paired this icon with a number system from 1 to 7, known as a resin identification code to identify the different types of plastic. That sounds great. We can work out what plastics are what. To me, they look like a number that I don't know what it means in a recycling triangle.
It's quite a misleading thing, I think, because everyone sees the triangle and says, oh, it has the ability to be recycled.
Look for Pete. My name's on my feet. I'm Pete. Pete, repeat.
The numbers, it feels like it was just a nice way to get consumers to think that it's recyclable.
In front of me, I have a 7, and I was told that's really bad.
The 7th one is other, which means it probably has like 50 different types of plastic in it. So of those, there are not just 7, but apparently, according to whoever made up these numbers, there are 7. But it doesn't mean that it can be recycled. All it does is saying this is what plastic is.
Once the message was put out there that anything with this icon could be recycled, recycling centers were slammed with mixed plastic contaminated with non-recyclable materials. Food waste, oil, and liquids that started to rot and spoil, all of which made it impossible to handle. And these companies knew this would be the case. For example, in the United States, numbers 3 to 7 do not get recycled at all. The process is expensive, complicated, and results in a product of low quality. Plastic products can't be remade together because they aren't made up of the same chemical properties, which is exactly what those numbers mean. Take my water bottle and these headphones. They're both made of plastic, but they have different melting temperatures. If you tried to combine them, you just end up with an unusable sludge. But those companies didn't advertise it like this. Instead, they made plastic the public's problem with a clear message.
People start pollution. People can stop it.
With, yes, a very questionable ad of an Italian man playing an indigenous person. Even today, most of us believe that recycling works, and we continue to buy products covered in plastic. The world creates around 350 million tons of plastic waste per year. Generally, 98% of it gets handled domestically and gets sent to landfills, incinerated, or recycled. The last 2% gets traded internationally. Each nation handles their waste management differently. In Europe, incineration is popular, whereas in the US, almost 3/4 goes to landfill. It all depends on the level of infrastructure set up. So where is the plastic I'm tracking going to end up? I spent the next few days glued to the Find My app, and 2 days later I got a notification one of the trackers has moved, where it sat in this Tesco's distribution centre with no active sign of life, whilst the plastic bottle suddenly started to jump around East London parks. So what I'm thinking is it's like sat in a council worker's van or rubbish bin, and he's just like walking around the parks collecting trash. Okay, it moved again to what looks like a recycling center, but it could also be a landfill. But it's still in the city, so I figured we could just head over there to try and confirm if it's a landfill or a recycling center. And as I started to get ready to leave, the dead plastic bag tracker came back online and started to move north. Oh my god. The only other time I'm this intensely tracking something is when I'm purchasing something online that I can't wait to get. If you manage a business, then you might want to check out the sponsor of this video, Shopify. Shopify offers an easy-to-use all-in-one commerce platform for anybody regardless of technical ability and experience to start, grow, and manage a business. They allow you to sell online, in person, and across all major social platforms. About 12 years ago, I started a small independent clothing company, which was super exciting, and I got hooked on the experience of starting and growing a company. But what I didn't account for was all the admin, shipping, website building, and marketing stuff that just comes with running a store. And back then, I didn't have Shopify. But Shopify reduces all that added work. They make tools for new merchants, like a business name generator, tools to help you easily customize your store, and they equipped you with great customer marketing tools. I'm excited to share that in the new year, we are looking to release limited products that will accompany these videos. More on that soon, but Shopify gives us the room to focus on making the best products possible and removes all the stuff that I don't particularly want to be dealing with. For a free trial to Shopify, go to shopify.com/Faultline. And now let's dive back into the murky world of plastic recycling. And before we figure out what exactly this facility is and where this bag is heading, I need to indulge in my slightly odd obsession with the wider world of waste management. Because if it's heading for a landfill, there's a chance that it's not even in this country. This is a tectonic plates map, but it's the only map of the world I have, so just ignore that. Okay, all countries produce different levels of waste. Here in the UK, we create 1.3 kilograms of waste per person per day. The European average is 1.1 kilograms, and the US produces as much as 2 kilograms per person. So what happens when countries can't deal with their trash locally? It ends up as part of the global waste industry. Again, this is a tectonic plates map. This is not a waste map. Ignore that. An entire network of businesses all built around trading and handling the world's trash. For 2 decades, the majority of that trade went towards China. Right, I got it. The world's largest market for recycled waste. Until 2018, when China prohibited 24 types of waste from entering the country, saying that products were too heavily contaminated. And they weren't wrong. Remember what everybody was told about mixed recycling?
Know me? I'm the fantastic 100% recyclable bottle. I'm Pete. Repeat.
In fact, in 2019, one of the UK's largest waste companies, Biffa, was found guilty of trying to ship used nappies, sanitary products, and clothing in bins marked as paper. So after China's policy change, the global waste industry panicked because they were like, where are we going to dispose all of our rubbish? We couldn't possibly dispose of it at home. That would be ridiculous. So they flooded any country willing to take it. And places like Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines were burdened with the world's trash. But a lot of these countries didn't have the right infrastructure to properly dispose of these materials, let alone their own. Trash burned in open landfills or illegal dumping sites, leading to plumes of smoke and methane or other toxic chemicals seeping into the environment.
As soon as you burn plastic, you're releasing super carcinogenic stuff, just because of what it's made from. It's just, it's essentially like burning crude oil.
One report found mountains of British and European waste in illegal dumping sites in Malaysia and in small communities. Children were hospitalized with respiratory issues caused by burning of waste. This led to a public health concern, and the Malaysian government sent back container ships of waste to these European countries. And along with Thailand and India, they announced bans on importing foreign waste. And these countries have to still manage their own waste, often without proper infrastructure, leaving abandoned trash to find its way into rivers and oceans. This is where my waste obsession started. I spent a week reporting in Lebanon on the Lebanese waste crisis that has affected the country since 2015. It's a whole different story that involves corruption, mismanagement, a civil war, and a revolution. But the reason I bring it up is it's a place that barely has a functioning waste management system. And I saw firsthand what happens when waste gets left unchecked. From afar, this mound of earth looks harmless, but when I fly in, you'll see that it isn't a mound of earth at all. It's a mountain of trash. It's a mountain of trash that they've just dumped soil on top of, and it stinks. And next to it, a second pile is starting to build up, with a very high chance that it will expand into the sea. Despite weekly cleanups and NGOs stepping in to try and mitigate the waste problem, Lebanon, like a lot of other poor nations, sees a lot of their waste and plastic polluting their rivers and ending up in the sea.
If you go scuba diving here in Lebanon, you're going to probably see more trash and beer bottles than fish.
Scientists estimate that anywhere from 1 to 2.5 million tons of plastic enter the ocean each year from rivers. Asia accounts for 81% of that plastic pollution, with a third coming from the Philippines alone. But there are a few important reasons to understand why certain areas release more plastic into our oceans. The first is these places have poor local waste management systems, meaning large quantities of mismanaged and abandoned trash, like we saw in Lebanon. Rivers are close to cities, and that higher population creates more trash. Also, high precipitation levels wash trash into nearby rivers or streams, and the rivers are close to coasts. And since the Philippines are a collection of many small islands with lots of rivers, that's why they contribute the most plastic into our oceans. But it's even more important to remember that rich countries generate way more waste. Here in the UK, we contribute very little to ocean plastic, but we produce 2 times as much plastic waste per person than the Philippines. Rich countries also have a better infrastructure set up to handle their own waste. You can see how the plastic that I've been tracking has jumped from different recycling centres. So it's actually been 2 weeks since that tracker arrived at this site. I've just been busy. I need to figure out what it is first. That will determine if I think it's still there or if it's been destroyed, thrown away. It's on the other side of this wall. My gut wants to say it's a recycling plant, but it could be, it's not gonna be a landfill, but it could be a holding center. Right, I'm gonna get closer. Also the hypocrisy right now. I'm heading home, had to pick up some sourdough, the cliche East London thing. What's it wrapped in? Plastic that probably can't be recycled. I know, I'm heading to a plant. Oh, look. Ooh. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely in the right place. I've never been so excited about a bin lorry before. Okay, I'm here. Excuse me, mate. Is this a recycling plant or is it waste?
No, we just park the vehicle here, then we tip at Edmonton.
Oh, no check there?
No, Edmonton.
So it just comes here?
No, we just pick up the vehicle, do the job, then go somewhere else, then bring the vehicle empty.
Oh, so no recycling
No,
waste goes here,
no.
just the vehicles?
Just
or-
the vehicle.
Okay, thank you, mate. Cheers. Now I'm confused. Apparently the vehicles are just stored here, but the track is still here. Looking at the map again, the tracker looks like it's coming from inside a building, so either it was found and just disposed of, somebody kept it, or just, yeah. Basically, I think this is the end of that tracker's life. And if this isn't where they dispose of waste, then I don't know what happened to it. But the other one, the other tracker is out of London. That's headed north.
Pretty big fear of this whole experiment was that there would be some indication that these items had found their way into the ocean. Now, the likelihood of that is low, but once I tell you about the deep, dark ocean plastic rabbit hole that I've fallen into for the past few days, you might understand my anxiety. This is the North Pacific Ocean. What you're seeing might not look like much, but it's the biggest accumulation of marine debris in the world. When I say big, we are talking 1.6 million squared kilometers. That's twice the size of Texas. I know, I also couldn't believe that this was true until we managed to speak to somebody who's actually been there.
It sounds crazy. It sounds like a floating island of garbage. And so I thought I would go there and check it out because something told me that the problem was bigger than that. And boy, was I right.
This is Erica Cirino, author and communication manager of the Plastic Pollution Coalition, and what she is describing is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It was discovered in 1997, and it contains 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic.
These forces in the ocean are so extreme, and the plastic begins this breakup process into the microplastics. And so what I encountered was not a garbage patch, but a plastic soup. So there would be, an intact item floating by, and then a bunch of microplastic, and then another item, and a net, and a rope. So let me see, I think I actually have plastic from the garbage patch. This is basically what is floating in the water. So just random plastic pieces of all different shapes.
And according to some estimates, this only accounts for 1% of the plastic in our oceans, which is extremely alarming. But why does so much of it end up here? My first thought was that it was being dumped there. Nope, turns out it is formed by 4 clockwise rotating currents. The area spinning debris is linked together at the convergence zone where warm water from the South Pacific meets cooler water from the Arctic. Think of it like a highway moving trash together into one specific spot. The circular motion draws debris into a stable center where the current is calm, essentially trapping trash inside the vortex. What's even crazier is that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is the largest of 5 offshore plastic accumulations, meaning that there are 4 more out there.
Seeing all that trash, all that, human stuff in this otherwise pristine place, the most beautiful place I'd ever been in the world, was all there. And it was like, this is all coming from land. How do I go back to land and then learn about the problem and learn how to solve it? Because this will only keep happening. I mean, the oceans are turning into a plastic soup. And that is the most startling reality, I think, that I encountered in this story.
After immersing myself in this story and looking at all the plastic that has been pulled from the patch, it really shows how reliant on plastic the world has become, a material that didn't exist just over 100 years ago.
There's no chance plastic is not going to be made anymore. So we sort of need to be able to change our way that we do live with it because we are now completely dependent on it as a human race.
So answering my big question, is plastic recycling a lie? Well, I think it comes with a lot of asterisks. We can't be certain whether our plastic will be correctly recycled or end up in a landfill. I think tracking these items demonstrates that. The plastic bag, by the way, is sitting in somewhere just outside of Kettering in a place called Eurokey Recycling. The tracker hasn't moved in over 3 weeks, so who knows? Maybe they found it and removed it, and that bag will actually be recycled. And while recycling is important and something we can't give up on, we also need to consider how best to reduce our intake of synthetic materials.
The thing that a lot of people tend to forget is that recycle is reduce, reuse, recycle, and that's the order. Recycle is kind of a last-ditch effort.
On a large scale, to really tackle this problem, researchers say that We have to do two things: look at waste management systems in rich countries and invest in better infrastructure so it doesn't get shipped overseas, and help poor to middle income countries improve their waste management by building proper infrastructure where plastic pollution is most at risk. Improving how we handle our waste may sound like the least exciting solution, but it's the most crucial to tackle this crisis. Coming out of this journey, I actually feel somewhat optimistic because I stumbled upon a bunch of great solution-based stories. The Great Garbage Patch is so far from any specific country, no nation is willing to take full responsibility to clear it up. But this year, a non-profit organization called the Ocean Cleanup has stepped up and started to tackle this crisis. The other is halting trash before it flows into rivers. In Lebanon, I spent the day with Live Love Recycle, an NGO who had taken it upon themselves to step in where the government had failed to recycle residents' waste in Beirut. If you want to see the full tour of their facility, you can check it out on patreon.com/Faultline, along with a bunch of other behind the scenes content and director commentaries of previous videos. You can pay what you like and all the tiers receive the same benefits, and your support helps us to continue making these videos. So have I given up on recycling? No, of course not, that would just be stupid. But I have a much better idea of what will likely happen to it if I recycle in the correct way. And there's many ways to mitigate the use of single plastics, but it would be great if the process of plastic recycling didn't have to be so confusing. But until then, I guess that's why this video exists.